Alrighty, good Friday evening, everybody. Meteorologist Connor Tank here, giving you the forecast for the rest of this weekend and even early next week. But we're also tracking some strong storms in the CSRA right now. That's kind of heading over between Aiken County and parts of Columbia and Richmond County as well. I was worried about the game at SRP Park, if this would get delayed or affected at all, as this storm is pushing on right through that area. So let's go ahead and take a look at that storm now. What's going on here? We're also going to have a time lapse that I want to show you of kind of the storm as it's moving through downtown Augusta here. I wanted to show you this. This is about 5 o'clock here. You see, we still got a decent amount of some blue skies here. It's partly cloudy conditions as well, but look at this. You're starting to see this wall of rain just coming through towards the CSRA. And I want to extend this here because it goes on a lot farther than that. And look at this. You just see that wall of rain coming, and bam, there it is. Just a complete washout. And I spoke to meteorologist Alex Carter beforehand, and he said that we got some downbursts from the storms. It was predicted in the severe weather statement that there was wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour and even quarter-size inch hail. So that's what's going on right now. And let's take a look at the Doppler radar as well of the storm. So as you can see, we've got some storms out here to our north and west, even kind of by Milledgeville, just outside of our DMA. And let's take a look at this storm right over here. It was moving 10 miles per hour in these areas here. And I want to go ahead and refreshen this a little bit because this statement here, it's moving a little bit more south than when it was last time. We still got quarter-size inch hail, 60 miles per hour wind gusts, and it is moving still at 10 miles per hour. This storm is still moving at 10 miles per hour. And this is not the first severe thunderstorm we got. We had one earlier just outside of Aiken and Barnwell County. But these are the areas that could get affected by this storm as it keeps pushing on through. So if you're in Bradleyville, the time it'll affect is at 7:18. Willow Springs Park is at 7:26. 7:35 in Clearwater, and in Burnett Town just right before 8 o'clock there. Keeping a look at this storm here. So yeah, got some isolated storms here in our area, and let's go ahead and take a look at some other storms as well. Got some scattered storms here as well in between, just right there between Thompson, just to the east of Warrenton. We've got this cell here as well, just to the southeast of Washington, just right past Clarks Hill Lake there. But yeah, this is the strong one right over here. And look at that. We've just got this strong wall of rain coming through, some heavy winds as well. And now it's just passing Beach Island. So I wouldn't be surprised if SRP Park, if the Green Jackets versus the Charleston River Dogs game got delayed because first pitch was at 7:05. And this wall of rain was just coming through as we're getting close to that 7:05 time frame. And I want to see if you have any comments over here. I was having kind of issues beforehand seeing any of the comments. Let's take a look at any comments we may have. Not seeing anything from YouTube. We'll take a look here now. Any of the comments. Do have one comment over here. From Cheryl, just a whole lot of nope. That is right. This is not what you want to see. And it's really unfortunate, too, because this is right as the River Dogs were about to play against our Augusta Green Jackets, right as this wall of rain was coming on through. So, yeah. Once we get a little bit past dinner time, this storm should push on through, and the rest of the CSRA should be on the dry side. Let's also talk about some other things here. So we are going to stay weather aware until our Tuesday afternoon. There is chances, just like today, for some isolated thunderstorms. And some of them could even be potentially strong, like this one we saw here that came through the downtown Augusta metro area. But from the places that don't see any thunderstorms, we are going to be weather aware because we're going to have high heat and humidity. We're having a lot of the influence from the heat dome right now, having heat index values well over 100 degrees in that 105 to 110 range. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see some heat index values above 110, even 111 or 112, or dare I say 113. Very hot. This is definitely the hottest it's been in the CSRA so far this year. That influence from the heat dome, plus how muggy it is, just feels very, very hot outside, even warmer than it is. You'd probably be surprised that the actual temperature isn't at 100 degrees. Well, it's not. We got in the mid to high 90s here, but with that influence from the moisture, it is just very sticky outside. So there are some potential heat-related illnesses from this. You need to make sure you're staying hydrated and seeking shade every now and then, because you could experience heat exhaustion or heat stroke, especially if you're doing any outdoor activities. So just make sure you're taking care of your body during this time frame, because this is going to stick around until our Tuesday afternoon. Let's get into evening futurecast. Do we have the potential for any more strong storms? Well, I don't think so. When we get about that 8 o'clock time frame, you see a couple of isolated showers here and there, kind of between just to the north of Washington and McCormick County. Bamberg, on the very southeastern side of Bamberg County, could see some isolated showers, but I think the majority of the CSRA should be dry once we get till 8 and past 8 o'clock here. And then when we get close to midnight, the majority of the CSRA should remain dry. And I'm going to check once again if we got any other comments here. Deborah, that's right. We definitely needed some rain to cool off a little bit. We don't want to see any severe thunderstorms, but it is nice to get a little bit of relief from the heat. We just don't want any damaged trees or any quarter-inch size hail to cause dents on our car or anything like that. We want people to be safe out there. With the heavy wind gusts and the rain band, the visibility could be a little bit lower as well. Could produce some microbursts from this as well. When you get those microbursts, you can get that wall of rain coming down plus the strong winds. We don't want to see that. 60 miles per hour is no joke, folks. It's still definitely very strong. Crystal, thank you for that. Thank you for tuning in. Talking about the forecast here. I was going to get into the pool forecast next, talking about that a little bit. Just like today, there is some chances for some isolated thunderstorms as well into the afternoon time frame, into early evening. But again, once you get past dinner time, the majority of the CSRA should remain dry. Here's your pool forecast for tomorrow. I think if you do want to go out for a swim, the best time would be kind of that 10 a.m. 10 frame, because it's already going to be 87 degrees by 10 a.m. And by noon, it's going to be 93 degrees. So into the afternoon, I'm going to show you that there one more time. Once you get to about 1, 3 p.m., there is a chance for some isolated thunderstorms, especially for our weekend. So if you want to go for a swim, kind of get a little bit of a relief from the heat, I think the best time to do that would be kind of that 10 a.m. to noon time frame, because it's going to be plenty hot, trust me. So for the UV index, it's still going to be very hot as well, and you need to make sure, kind of just like with heat-related illnesses, make sure you're taking care of your body. The UV index is going to be very high as well. So if you do go for a swim, just make sure you're applying that sunscreen, seeking shade every now and then, and staying hydrated, because the burn time will be 25 minutes or less. Now let's dive into the weekend. What's the forecast going to be there for our weekend here? Well, kind of same scenario as today. That 10 a.m. to noon time frame should be fine. But once we get to about 2 o'clock, you're starting to see, it's outside of the CSRA, but we're already starting to see some of these storms ramping up. Kind of got that influence from the boundary as well, plus all the moisture in play. With the influence from the heat dome, it's plenty hot. Just a little bit of lift is going to provide the chances for some thunderstorms. We already have the moisture in play. A little bit of instability and lift is all it's going to take for some storms to fire up, and that's going to be the case for this weekend. I think we're going to see some isolated thunderstorms for our Saturday and Sunday. Again, the time frame is going to be between 2 till just about dinner time, 7, 8 o'clock. Once we get past that, majority of the CSRA should stay dry. Getting into Sunday, same thing. Once you get to that afternoon time frame, seeing these storms starting to fire up. You see that just to the southeast of Atlanta here, between Atlanta and Macon on I-75, and storms kind of pushing through even into I-16 as well. Again, kind of about that frontal boundary I was saying. And you see that blue here. It is a front. It's not going to make things too much cooler, but it is going to provide that lift and instability that we need for some of these thunderstorms to start cranking up here. Same thing, though. Past dinner time, the majority of the CSRA should remain dry. And I'm going to go ahead, take a look and see any other questions you have here. Not seeing any right now. Let's take a look here at YouTube as well. Not seeing any questions. So we're going to keep continuing on here, highlighting into early next week. What's going to be happening there? Well, we're going to be on the edge of the heat dome once again. Right now, we're kind of not so much on the edge of it. That's why we're feeling some of these really hot temperatures right now with high heat and humidity. We're going to have some influence from the edge of the heat dome once again. And we're going to have a weak front pushing on through as well. Being on the edge of the heat dome plus this front, it's going to provide us the lift that we need to see some of these storms firing up. We're still going to have a lot of moisture in play too. We're going to have this Gulf high that's going to keep pushing the moisture into the southeastern United States. But I think the heat index values still will be pretty high, but any places, kind of like today, that see an isolated thunderstorm or two, should get a little bit of relief from the heat. So now let's get later into the week. What's that forecast going to be? Well, as you see, the heat dome is going to push well to our west, and we're not going to see so much outer edge heat dome. Those ridge riders is what the storms that we call them when the storms progress on the outer edge of the heat dome. That heat dome is going to be to the west, and we're going to have another frontal boundary coming down. We're going to have, you see that Gulf high as well. That's kind of towards the Great Lakes here. The southeastern United States evidently is going to see a good chance for some coverage as well later into our week. I think we're going to get a slight relief from the high heat and humidity as well, especially by our Wednesday, like I mentioned, but also a little bit more active coverage. I think we're going to see Thursday, I think you might see a heat index value of 100 degrees, but I think we'll be more in the 90s for the heat index values, not the actual temperature, but the heat index for our later into the week. It's going to get a little bit more active coverage there, a little bit higher sky cover there, going to get a little bit of relief from the heat. Now, the last thing I wanted to touch on here is the tropics. So we had Cristobal already. It became a post-tropical depression about 2 days ago. And it continued to weaken, yesterday morning it turned into a post-tropical depression and continued to weaken in the Atlantic basin. Not a threat to the United States, not a landfall storm, definitely not a threat to the CSRA. And in fact, I don't think we're going to see any tropical event for the CSRA, at least in the foreseeable future over the next couple of days here. One of these tropical waves that came off the Africa had a chance of development about 80%. It's lowered a good bit here. You see 30 to 50% chance there. The reason it's lowered is because we have a lot of influence from the Pacific jet stream. That's actually thanks to our good old friend El Nino kind of strengthening that Pacific jet stream. And what happens is when these tropical waves meet the Pacific jet stream, they're kind of crossing in between each other. Got a lot of winds coming off the Pacific jet stream. We call that wind shear. What that is doing is that shear is kind of breaking these tropical waves, affects them from developing. They don't like wind shear. Tropical systems like no wind shear and very warm waters. And they're getting the warm waters, but getting that wind shear. So these tropical waves here have weakened. There was an 80% chance the next named storm would be Dolly, but now it's dropped to that 30 and 50% chance. So I think it's still going to be a little while before we see Tropical Storm Dolly or Edouard. Hopefully we don't see them at all, but I doubt that's the case. Now, kind of see if anybody has any other questions here. Not seeing any. So we'll keep continuing on here. Going to give you that 7-day forecast. Kind of looking at that here. Like I mentioned, up until our Tuesday, that's when we're going to stay weather aware. We're going to have the high heat and humidity. Heat index values well above 100 degrees. Wednesday, I think we're going to get a slight relief from the heat. Still going to have very high heat, but got a little bit of dry air. Just a pocket of it that's going to come through by our Wednesday earlier in the day. I think that's going to prevent our chances from seeing any high heat index values. We're not going to have quite as much moisture. But then when we get to the evening time frame for Wednesday, I think you've got a good chance of some isolated thunderstorms as the moisture comes swimming back pretty quickly. Thursday, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a heat index value of 100 degrees again. Not going to be in the 105 to 110 range, I don't think. And then Friday, It's a little bit more active coverage, kind of that late week outlook that I showed you in the weather setup just a moment ago. I think with a little bit more overcast and active coverage, I wouldn't be surprised if the heat indexes kind of just stay in the 90s. So let's take a look at this storm one more time before I let you guys go. The one we were talking about here that just kind of crossed SRP Park. You see, we still got some isolated storms here. And if we go to the next segment, okay, that's good news here. It's not a severe storm anymore. We do have just a special weather statement from this, but as you can see, we're not seeing as much red anymore. We're seeing a lot more green and yellows. So this system is starting to weaken, so that's good news there. It's crossing through Beach Island now. Going to keep pushing on through, but that's a good sign that this storm is starting to weaken. So again, once we get past dinner time, I think the majority of the CSRA should be more on the dry side, but going into the weekend, like we were talking about, you might see a similar scenario that you saw today. Don't be surprised if some of these storms do become more on the stronger side. So that's all we have for now, folks. Thank you for tuning in, and for any questions you had, I greatly appreciated doing this. Stay tuned into the weekend. And forecaster Clarissa Meyer, her last forecast here at Fox 54 will be on Sunday. Make sure to stay tuned for that. Could see a little bit of active coverage as well, kind of between that same time frame, between 2 up until 7, 8 o'clock by dinner time. Then afterwards should be okay. Alrighty, that's all I have for you. Thankfully, that storm is weakened now, and hope you have a great I hope you have a great end to your work week and a great start to your weekend. Hopefully, you can get out there and kind of cool off a little bit and take a dip in maybe your neighborhood pool or your own pool. Alrighty, take care.